Archangel Michael says, I am trying to speak to you in this very moment, and I need you to understand that this is urgent, more urgent than anything else you are holding in your heart right now, because your soul has only a short window to receive what heaven has been preparing for you, and if you open your heart in the next 2 minutes, your life could be filled with a peace, a purpose, and a healing that you've been silently crying for in the depths of your spirit, even when no one around you knew you were hurting. Type Amen if you believe in God's endless mercy. Heaven has been watching over you, even when you thought no one cared, and even though your path has felt dark, lonely, and uncertain at times, there has been a divine presence by your side, walking quietly, carrying your unseen burdens, holding your trembling heart when it felt like it couldn't take any more, and whispering love into the silence you've often drowned in, because the Lord has never stopped loving you, not even for 1 second. You may not realize it now, but there are moments in your life that heaven has wept over, moments where your soul was bruised, your spirit felt forgotten, and your faith became quiet and hidden under layers of disappointment, betrayal, and confusion. But even in those moments, God was not far, and Jesus never loosened his grip on your life, even when you tried to let go of everything, because your existence carries a light that can never be erased. There is a reason this message has found you right now, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but in this sacred breath you are taking at this very moment, because your heart has been aching for something that this world could never offer you, and the Father has heard that silent ache, and He is sending His love to you through this message as a reminder that you are still chosen, still seen, and still covered by a grace that has never stopped flowing around you. Subscribe to this channel if you love spending time with God. You may be wondering how a message can hold so much weight, how words can reach the corners of your soul that even your closest loved ones couldn't see, but this is not just a message, it is a moment of divine intervention, a moment when the veil between heaven and earth grows thinner, just enough for you to hear the whisper of God's presence reminding you that your pain has not been wasted, and your journey has not been in vain. There are wounds in your life that haven't fully healed, memories that still sting, regrets that still echo through your thoughts, and yet, here you are, still breathing, still moving forward, still hoping that somehow, even after everything, something beautiful can grow from the broken places of your heart, and that hope you carry, however faint, is proof that God is still working, still weaving miracles into your story in ways you cannot yet see. Type 2222 to open the door to new blessings. This is not the time to give up, this is not the moment to walk away from your faith, because even though the enemy has tried to convince you that you are too far gone, too flawed, too forgotten, the truth is that your spirit is still alive, your purpose is still unfolding, and your name is still written in God's book of promises that can never be erased by any mistake, failure, or moment of weakness that you've experienced. Do not turn away, remain until the end, because this message holds strength for your heart. Jesus Christ did not come to call the perfect, He came to hold the broken, to lift the weary, to comfort those who cry alone at night when the world is asleep, and to offer a new beginning to those who feel like their time has run out, and you, yes you, are being called in this very moment to step into the light of that new beginning, not tomorrow, not next week, but now, before this window of divine urgency fades. You have not been forgotten, you have not been cast aside, and you are not alone in this spiritual battle you've been silently fighting, because Archangel Michael has been dispatched to fight alongside you, to defend your name in the heavenly realm, to push back the darkness that has been trying to smother your light, and to remind you that you are a beloved child of God, destined not for despair, but for redemption and peace. I need you to hear this and feel it deep in your heart, not as another set of words, but as a holy embrace, wrapping around the deepest part of your being, because your life matters to heaven, your story is not over, and what God is preparing for you will be greater than every storm you've survived, every tear you've cried, and every battle you've had to face when no one else stood beside you. So listen closely, stay still in your spirit, and let your heart soften, because what is being poured out right now is not from man, but from the very heart of your heavenly Father, who is reaching for you through this message, trying to awaken something within you that has been quietly sleeping under the weight of the world's heaviness. Type 2121 if you trust God's plan for your life. He is calling you back to a place of peace, of wholeness, of trust, and of unshakable faith, not because you've earned it, but because He loves you beyond what your mind can comprehend, and that love is breaking through every wall, every doubt, every fear, and every lie that has tried to keep you bound for far too long. And now, before the window closes, take this moment, take this breath, and let God in again, because this truly is not just a message, it is your moment, your turning point, your divine invitation into a life where faith becomes your anchor, love becomes your covering, and hope becomes your steady companion. Archangel Michael says, I am still speaking to you, and heaven is still waiting for your heart to remain open, because what began in the previous moment is not yet complete, and this sacred unfolding of divine truth will continue flowing until the very last word of this message reaches the hidden corners of your soul where the deepest healing must begin. Even though the world moves fast and pulls your attention in so many directions, this moment is unlike the noise around you, because it carries the breath of something holy, something eternal, something that gently but powerfully awakens your spirit to the presence of God, who has never once left your side through the seasons when everything felt lost and empty. There have been days when the weight you carried felt too much for your body, and nights when your thoughts kept spinning, searching for peace that seemed too far away to grasp, and even though you may have smiled through the pain to keep others from worrying, Heaven saw everything you were carrying, and the Lord counted every silent tear that no one else ever noticed. Your heart has endured more than anyone knows, and you've quietly longed for someone to understand without needing to explain everything, someone who could hold the pain without judgment, and someone who would offer love without conditions. And I want you to know that this is exactly what your Father in heaven has been doing all along, surrounding you with a love that never demands you to be perfect in order to be cherished. There is nothing you have been through that has surprised God, and there is no shame in His presence, only mercy that welcomes your brokenness and turns it into something sacred, something that can one day help others heal. Because the very areas where you feel most unworthy are often the places where God's light will shine the brightest through your life. Type 2020 to embrace joy and strength in Christ. You may not realize how deeply your heart is needed in this world, how many lives your story can touch, and how powerful your presence becomes when you start to believe that you were created for something more than surviving, because within you there is a divine spark, a reflection of Jesus Himself, who endured pain not so that you would be spared from it, but so that your pain would never be wasted. Jesus knows what it feels like to be rejected, to be misunderstood, to be broken by the very ones he came to love, and that same Jesus is walking with you now, not as a distant figure, but as the gentle healer of your inner wounds, the soft voice that comforts your mind when it starts to spiral, and the unshakable hand that reaches down to lift you when you can't lift yourself. I know there are parts of your journey that you wish could be erased, memories that you wish had never happened, decisions that still haunt your peace, but I tell you this with all the authority of heaven's truth: none of it has made you unlovable, none of it has made you unusable, and none of it has disqualified you from the promises God still plans to fulfill in your life. You are not just someone passing through this world with a forgotten story. You are a vessel of light in the making, being shaped slowly, lovingly, and purposefully by the same hands that formed the stars, and even though your life may not look like a miracle on the outside yet, what is happening within you is far greater than anything this world could give. Please don't allow the voice of fear to grow louder than the whisper of faith inside your spirit, because fear will always try to tell you that you're not ready, not strong enough, not holy enough, but the truth is that God never called the ready, He called the willing, and if all you can offer Him right now is a tired heart and a quiet yes, that is more than enough for His grace to begin its gentle work. You are here for a reason, reading these words at a time when your soul was reaching for something more, and this is not coincidence, it is divine timing, because God knows the exact moment when your heart is ready to receive what your mind may not yet understand, and He will never rush you, never pressure you, but always invite you into something deeper, something more beautiful than what you left behind. Let the past stay in the past, not because it doesn't matter, but because it no longer has permission to define the rest of your story, and as you step forward in this moment, I want you to carry with you the quiet confidence that even though you still feel broken in some places, God is already planting seeds of joy and restoration that will blossom in His perfect time. Type 2323 if you trust in God. You do not need to force your healing, you do not need to figure everything out right now, you only need to rest in the truth that you are safe in God's care, and even if you've lost your way 1,000 times before, you are still being called home, still being welcomed with love, and still being chosen for a life that carries heaven's fingerprints in every detail. So take a deep breath, and let these words be more than just paragraphs on a screen, let them be the echo of heaven calling your name, the gentle reminder that even when you feel forgotten by the world, you are remembered in the halls of eternity, and even when you feel empty, you are still full of purpose in the eyes of the One who created you. Archangel Michael says, I am still standing near you, not just in thought or imagination, but in truth, with the authority and presence that heaven sends when someone's heart has been weighed down for too long, and this moment is a continuation of the sacred outpouring that began when you first opened your heart to listen, because the healing that God wants to pour into your life cannot be rushed or silenced. This is not just encouragement to help you feel better temporarily, this is a divine awakening gently unfolding in your spirit, reminding you that even in the quiet moments when everything feels still, God is moving behind the veil of your circumstances, arranging things in ways you can't yet see, because He is not only the God of miracles, He is the God of slow and steady restoration. There is something beautiful happening right now, not in the noise of the world around you, but in the deep, sacred stillness within you, where your true heart lives, the place that was formed by the breath of God, the place where His voice speaks to you, not with pressure or demands, but with soft comfort, gentle strength, and a peace that does not rise and fall with your emotions. You were not created to live in fear of the future, or to stay chained to what went wrong in the past, because God is not holding anything against you. He is holding you together, holding your fragile spirit with care, and holding the pieces of your story with a grace that refuses to let anything be wasted, even the parts that you thought were beyond repair. If you feel lost right now, that doesn't mean you've failed, and if your heart is tired, that doesn't mean you're weak. It simply means that your soul has been running for too long without the rest that only God can give, and right now, He is calling you into a rest that doesn't depend on your circumstances being perfect, but on your spirit being cradled in His everlasting arms. Type 999 if you trust Jesus. You are not being asked to understand everything, or to carry more than you already have. You are being invited to surrender, not in defeat, but in peace, not to give up, but to give in to the love that has been chasing you through every storm, every heartbreak, and every lonely night when you thought no one was listening. There is no shame in being weary, no weakness in crying out, because those cries become prayers, and those prayers become doors, and those doors open to places where God can finally do the work that only He can do, the work of healing what others broke, restoring what you thought was lost forever, and breathing life into the parts of you that have been asleep for far too long. I need you to understand how important your heart is to heaven, how deeply you are valued, not because of your achievements or your strength, but because of your existence, because you carry the image of the one who formed you, and no amount of pain, failure, or delay can erase that truth. Heaven rejoices not when you pretend to be okay, but when you come as you are, raw and real, with your mess and your questions and your wounds, because that is where grace meets you, not at the place of perfection, but at the place of surrender, and that grace is flowing toward you even now, wrapping itself around your soul like a warm blanket on a cold night. Let yourself be honest with God, let your words be imperfect if they must, let your heart tremble if it needs to, because He is not here to judge your expression, He is here to hold your heart, to whisper peace into your worry, and to remind you that even when you feel like you're falling, you are still falling into His hands, and His hands never let go. I know there have been delays, doors that wouldn't open, prayers that seemed unanswered, and seasons that felt more like silence than movement, but I tell you now, not everything that seems like a delay is a denial, and not every silence is absence, because God is often working most powerfully in the quiet seasons, shaping you for what you've been praying for. You are being prepared for a new chapter, one where peace replaces panic, where joy flows even when circumstances are uncertain, and where love, real, healing, holy love, surrounds your life not just in glimpses, but in lasting waves that change the way you see yourself and the world around you. Heaven is still speaking, and the message will continue to unfold, but this moment is important, because it is the place where you stop running, where you stop trying to carry everything alone, and where you begin to allow the Spirit of God to carry you instead, not as a burden, but as His beloved. The time is now, not because you're running out of opportunities, but because God is opening something new, something sacred, something that will not look like the pain you've known, but instead will reflect the healing you've been longing for. Type 1818 to claim miracles. Archangel Michael says, "The message I am bringing to you now is not just a continuation of what has already been spoken, but a deeper calling, a sacred pull from the heart of God, who is longing for you to realize that you have never walked alone, not even in the moments that seem drenched in sorrow, confusion, or unbearable silence. The reason this message reaches you in this very hour is because heaven has seen your tears, not the ones others noticed, but the ones you wiped away quietly when no one else was watching, and each of those tears has been precious in the eyes of the Lord, not forgotten, not dismissed, but gathered like pearls in His hand, each one carrying the weight of prayers you didn't even have the words to speak. There are seasons in life when the heart becomes so weary that even the act of hoping feels painful, when disappointment has settled like a fog that will not lift, and you begin to wonder whether all your faith has led to anything at all. But I need you to hear this now. Your faith has never been wasted, your trust has never gone unseen, and your endurance is not for nothing. Because every unseen act of courage you've shown has been witnessed by the angels. You may have grown used to carrying everything by yourself, because life has taught you not to expect anyone else to understand, but I tell you in this very moment, you are not meant to carry this burden alone anymore, because God is not asking you to be strong without help, He is asking you to let Him be your strength, your comfort, and your refuge, especially when you feel like you have nothing left to give. There is no part of your past that disqualifies you from God's love, and there is no moment too far gone for Him to redeem, because His mercy does not run out at the edge of your mistakes, it pours deeper into them, healing, restoring, and transforming what once felt hopeless into a testimony of grace that will shine through you like a light in the darkest night. You are not being called to be perfect, you are being called to be real, to be honest, to be soft in a world that taught you to be hard, and to believe once more that miracles still happen, not just in faraway places or for other people, but in your life, right here, right now, when you least expect it and most need it. There are things in your life that have broken you, but those things do not get the final say, because the story God is writing is still unfolding, and what has felt like the end may only be the middle, the sacred turning point where the ashes begin to give way to beauty, and your sorrow begins to bloom into something that cannot be explained by anything other than divine love. Heaven is not asking for you to understand how it will all come together. Heaven is simply asking you to trust that it will, and to keep holding on, not because everything is already fixed, but because the one who holds you is faithful, and He has never once dropped the story of your life from His hands. Type Amen if you believe. The enemy has tried again and again to make you believe that you are too broken to be used, too far gone to be loved, or too wounded to rise again, but I speak with the authority of heaven when I tell you that none of those lies have power over a heart that is willing to be held by God, because when the Lord speaks life into your soul, no lie can bury it, and no darkness can overcome it. There is something sacred about your journey, something holy about your survival, and something powerful about your willingness to keep walking, even when the road felt empty, because that willingness is what has kept you aligned with the promise that God is still doing something new, something so tender and yet so transformative that when it fully blooms, you will not even recognize the version of yourself that once felt too tired to believe again. So right now, wherever you are, in whatever condition your heart may be, I want you to receive this moment as a gift, not just words from a page, but a divine touch upon your spirit, the kind that does not rush past your wounds, but sits beside them, speaks life over them, and lets you breathe for the first time in what feels like forever. Even if the world never fully understands the depth of what you carry, God does, and He is not ashamed of your sadness, He is not disappointed in your questions, and He is not turned away by your struggle. Instead, He draws closer, wraps Himself around your sorrow, and speaks the kind of comfort that cannot be learned from the world, only felt from heaven. So rest now, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer alone in the imperfection, and because heaven is not asking you to figure it all out, but to simply be held, and to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything you've endured has been preparing your soul to receive something far more beautiful than anything you've lost. Archangel Michael says, "As I continue to speak to your heart, I need you to know that this message is not meant to simply pass through your mind, it is meant to remain with you, to echo gently through the silent places within you that have not felt peace in a long time, because the words you are receiving right now carry a heavenly weight that is meant to cradle, not crush, your spirit." There are times in life when the noise of the world becomes so loud that it drowns out the softest, most important truths, the ones that whisper of love, belonging, and purpose, and that is why heaven has chosen this very moment to quiet the chaos around you, so that your heart can hear the soft sound of God reminding you that your existence is not a mistake, your pain is not forgotten, and your healing is already on its way. Though you may have felt invisible in a world that rewards appearance over authenticity, and speed over stillness, I want you to understand that God has never overlooked your soul, not once, because the eyes of heaven see deeper than the surface, and they behold every fragile thread of your heart's longing with a compassion so pure, so gentle, that it can only come from divine love. You have walked through storms that others never noticed, and you have stood in battles without armor, with nothing but quiet faith holding you together, and I speak this truth over your soul now. Those invisible victories are celebrated in heaven more than any earthly success, because the strength it took for you to keep standing when you felt like crumbling was not your own, it was the Spirit of God lifting you from within. Type 1111 if you agree. Even if no one has ever thanked you for the silent ways you've loved others, for the forgiveness you offered without receiving any apology, or for the patience you showed when you were hurting yourself, know that God has seen it all, and not one act of quiet obedience, not one sacrifice made in love, has been missed or dismissed in the eyes of your Heavenly Father. You are not just surviving, you are growing, even in the places that still feel barren, because growth in God's hands does not always look like movement, sometimes it looks like stillness, like resting in the middle of the unknown, like choosing to believe that there is more for you even when the path ahead remains hidden. Your soul may have grown tired from trying to be strong all the time, and that is okay, because you were never designed to be your own source of strength, you were made to lean, to rest, to depend on a love greater than anything this world can offer, and that love has never asked you to earn its embrace, only to receive it. There is no moment in your life too dark for God's light to enter, and no story too twisted for Him to untangle, because He is not afraid of your past, and He is not limited by your present. He sees what you cannot see, the beauty still buried beneath the pain, the joy that is still growing in the soil of your sorrow, and the future He's preparing for you even when everything around you feels uncertain. The enemy has tried to wear you down, not just with hardship, but with lies, telling you that nothing will ever change, that you are too broken to be loved fully, or too lost to find your way again, but those lies are dissolving right now under the light of God's truth that is being poured into your soul, reminding you that you are still chosen, still called, and still deeply loved by the one who created you with care. So many times, you've asked for clarity, for signs, for something to let you know that God is still with you, and while the world often demands loud confirmations, heaven works in quiet wonders, in messages like this, in moments of stillness where your heart can finally catch its breath and remember that you were never forsaken, not even for a moment. I am not here to offer false promises or quick fixes, because God does not deal in illusions, He deals in truth, and the truth is that even though healing takes time, it is happening now, as you read these words, as you allow yourself to soften, to feel, to be vulnerable in the presence of God who loves you not because you are perfect, but because you are His. You have spent so long trying to hold it all together, to keep moving forward while suppressing your own needs, but this is the moment where you are allowed to exhale, to be still, to be comforted by the truth that you are already enough, that you are already loved, and that the weight you've been carrying can be laid down in the arms of the one who carries you. Type 666 if you believe in God's grace. Even if you don't yet see the miracle, I want you to know that it is unfolding gently, quietly, beautifully in the background of your life, and when the time is right, it will reveal itself in a way that makes everything you've endured make sense, not because the pain was good, but because God is good, and He has never once let go of you. So let this message settle deep within you, let it become a resting place, a shelter for your weary heart, and let it remind you that you are no longer walking this path alone, because heaven is surrounding you, holding you, and speaking life into every part of your soul that thought it was forgotten. Archangel Michael says, "This message is still unfolding with the breath of heaven, and even now, as your eyes move across these words, something sacred is being stirred within you, something that perhaps you have not felt in a long time, an unspoken peace, a quiet recognition that maybe, just maybe, God has been closer than you realized all along." There is something profoundly holy about the moments when a wounded soul begins to feel again, when a tired heart begins to hope again, and I want you to know that what you are feeling right now is not your imagination, it is the presence of God gently awakening your spirit, reassuring you that your cries have not been in vain and that your longing for comfort is being answered. You have carried yourself through so many storms with strength that no one recognized, holding back tears to protect those around you, putting others first even when your own heart was breaking, and doing your best to remain kind in a world that often feels cold and uncaring. But heaven has seen every single effort, and it has not gone unnoticed by the one who values the quiet bravery you live with each day. The Lord has been walking with you in every valley, through every shadow, and though it may have felt like you were walking alone, it was His presence that kept your spirit from collapsing under the weight of it all, and now that you've reached this moment, this holy pause, He is pouring back into you all the love, grace, and healing that you have so freely given to others. You may not yet fully understand how much your life matters, how many people have been touched by your gentle strength, or how often your smile has been a light in someone else's darkness, but the truth is that you are carrying a divine light within you, a reflection of Christ Himself, and no sorrow, no failure, and no betrayal can ever extinguish what God placed inside you from the beginning. This world has a way of making people feel forgotten when they are no longer useful, or when they become too quiet, too sad, or too complicated, but God does not operate like the world, because His love is not based on what you can do for Him, it is rooted in who you are to Him, and you are His beloved child, eternally cherished and protected under His watchful care. Type 1414 to step into divine protection. There are parts of your life that still feel unfinished, pieces of your journey that feel unresolved, and moments in your memory that bring tears even after all this time. But I am here to remind you that heaven has not forgotten those pieces, and God is not finished writing the story that began long before the world ever hurt you. You do not need to rush your healing, and you do not need to pretend to be okay when you are still in the process of becoming whole again, because God honors the honest heart, and He does His most beautiful work not in the polished parts of our lives, but in the places we try to hide, the parts that ache, the places we fear will never be restored. He is not disappointed in how long it has taken you to heal, and He is not measuring your worth by how quickly you recover from pain, because His love is not like human love. It does not falter when you're at your lowest, and it does not grow weary when you feel weak. In fact, it draws closer, surrounds you, and covers you in ways you may not even recognize until years from now when you look back and realize how far you've come. So let this be your moment to stop running from the pain, and instead, allow God to meet you in it, to sit with you in the silence, to hold you as you are without demanding more, and to gently breathe life back into the parts of you that have been holding their breath for far too long. You are not forgotten, not even slightly, and there are blessings still on their way to you, not because you have done everything perfectly, but because God's goodness is not earned, it is given, it is steady, and it never stops pursuing you, even when you lose sight of it in the middle of your tears. I know there have been days when you questioned everything, when you wondered if your prayers were lost, and when you doubted whether your voice was heard at all, but I tell you with the certainty of heaven that every word you've ever spoken to God, even the ones uttered through tears and trembling, has been received, remembered, and written down with care. This message is not meant to fix you, because you are not broken in the way the world defines brokenness. You are tender, you are human, and you are healing, and God is not in a rush to force you forward. He simply wants to walk with you, one step at a time, into a future that holds more joy than sorrow and more purpose than pain. So stay here a little longer, let these words be a shelter for your soul, a quiet place where you are allowed to feel, to rest, and to believe once again that your life still holds something sacred, something beautiful, something heaven is still unfolding. Archangel Michael says, I am still here with you, speaking softly to your spirit, because what heaven has begun within your heart cannot be left unfinished, and the message you are receiving now is part of a divine unfolding, a sacred restoration of the strength, peace, and joy that life's pain may have tried to steal from you, but could never fully take. Type 1010 if you trust in God's timing. It is no accident that you are still reading this, because when God calls someone to pause and listen, it is not merely for encouragement, but for transformation, and what you are feeling within you now is not just emotion, it is movement, the movement of divine love shifting things inside your soul that have been still for too long, places that have been waiting for the right moment to rise again. You have been through more than you've ever admitted out loud, you have suffered in silence because you didn't want to be a burden, and you have tried to convince yourself that your pain didn't matter, but the truth is, every wound you've carried has been seen, every cry you've hidden has been heard, and every part of your spirit that still trembles is being held gently in the hands of the one who never grows tired of loving you. The world may have convinced you that strength means hiding your brokenness, smiling through your sorrow, and pretending that you're always okay, but heaven's truth is entirely different. True strength is found in your honesty, in your softness, in your willingness to keep showing up even when you feel empty inside, because the courage it takes to be vulnerable is greater than any appearance of control. You may not yet see the healing that is taking place, but I need you to trust that it is happening, even in the places that still hurt, even in the memories that still sting, even in the doubts that whisper that things will never change, because God does not begin something in you that He does not intend to finish, and what He is building within you is not temporary relief, it is eternal renewal. Your life has meaning, even if others fail to see it, and your heart carries depth, even if the world misunderstood it, because God designed every detail of who you are with holy intention, and not one part of your personality, your history, or your soul was a mistake. Everything about you is known, loved, and chosen by the Creator who breathes purpose into every single heartbeat. There are places in your story that still feel like shadows, filled with memories you would rather forget, but I want you to know that even those chapters have value, not because of the pain itself, but because of the beauty God will bring from it, the redemption that will rise from those ashes, and the compassion that will grow from wounds you once thought would never stop hurting. You do not have to force joy, and you do not need to rush your peace, because heaven is not demanding your perfection, it is inviting your presence, just as you are, in whatever state your soul is in right now, because the invitation has never been about performing, it has always been about coming home to the one who knows you completely and loves you endlessly. Let your heart be still for a moment longer, and let yourself feel the truth that you have not been forgotten, that your life is not a background story in the eyes of God, but a central piece in the divine tapestry He is weaving, a life that will shine with a light born not of ease, but of endurance, not of simplicity, but of survival through sacred fire. Even when others walked away from you, even when you were misunderstood, even when you were left to carry your sorrow alone, heaven never left your side, not once, not even for a second, and though the silence felt like abandonment, it was often the quiet before something holy began to rise. Type 888 to open doors of abundance. Your soul has survived storms it didn't deserve, losses it couldn't explain, and loneliness that went deeper than words, but look at you now, you are still here, still reading, still seeking, and still open to the possibility that God's love is bigger than all the pain you've lived through, and that belief, that tiny spark of hope, is the foundation for the miracle you didn't even know you were waiting for. So breathe deeply now, not because all the answers are here, but because you are finally in a space where you don't need to have all the answers in order to be deeply and fully loved, and in that space, healing can finally begin to bloom without pressure, without shame, and without fear of being too much or not enough. God is writing something beautiful with your life, and even if the ink feels messy, even if the pages feel torn, the story is still in His hands, and He is not done showing you what redemption truly looks like when it comes straight from His heart to yours. Archangel Michael says, "The message continues not because heaven has more to demand from you, but because heaven has more to give, more to pour into the places of your heart that have grown dry from waiting, from hoping, from carrying the weight of unseen sorrows that stretched far beyond what your strength was ever meant to endure on its own." This is not merely a continuation of words, this is a continuation of healing, a divine outpouring that is gently unraveling the tension inside your soul, softening the parts of you that have stayed guarded for too long, and reminding you, without judgment or pressure, that you were never expected to walk through this life without sacred help. You may have learned how to survive by building walls, by staying quiet, by holding everything inside so that no one could see how deeply you were hurting, but I tell you now, with heaven's full compassion, that survival is not the end of your story, because God did not create you to merely survive. He created you to live, to feel, to breathe freely in the security of His love, even when the world feels unsafe. There is no need for you to prove your worth or to earn your place in the arms of the Father, because your value was established before the first breath you ever took, and no failure, no heartbreak, no moment of weakness has ever been able to erase the original love that was written into your being from the very beginning. You are not defined by what you've lost, or by how long you've been in pain, and even though your tears have fallen in silence, they have not fallen in vain, because each one has watered the ground for something sacred to grow, a healing that is deeper than explanation and a peace that reaches far beyond understanding. Type "I believe" if you believe miracles are on the way. There is something within you that heaven cherishes, a tenderness that the world may have overlooked, a quiet light that never stopped flickering even when the night around you felt endless, and it is this light that God is nurturing now, breathing into it, not with the force of urgency, but with the gentleness of divine presence, the kind that speaks without words and holds without hands. Please understand that your journey has not been a series of wasted seasons, but a path filled with hidden grace, and even though some chapters brought more sorrow than joy, the one who walks beside you has been using even the most painful moments as stepping stones towards something more beautiful than you can imagine from where you currently stand. You are not late, you are not behind, and you have not missed your moment, because God's timing is not built on human clocks. It is shaped by love, stretched by mercy, and always aligned with your soul's readiness to receive what you were never meant to force into being, only meant to welcome when the time was right. And now, the time is becoming right. Not because your life looks perfect, and not because everything suddenly makes sense, but because your heart is softening again, your spirit is listening again, and your willingness to believe again has opened a door that no enemy, no memory, and no mistake can close. Let this moment be your permission to breathe without fear, to weep without shame, and to begin again without apology, because God is not only restoring what was lost, He is restoring you, and not to who you used to be, but to who you were always meant to become, the version of you that was never broken, never doubted, never abandoned in the eyes of heaven. You are being held through this message, not by words on a page, but by the Spirit that fills those words with warmth, with kindness, and with truth so powerful that it reaches into the most private wounds and begins to soothe them with love that asks nothing of you but your openness. You do not need to explain yourself to be understood here, and you do not need to hide your scars to be accepted here, because God's love does not require masks. It welcomes the real you, the raw you, the unsure you, and it promises to remain, not just in moments of faith, but in moments of doubt and weariness and longing too deep for language. So as you sit with this message, let the pressure fall away, let the old stories lose their grip, and let the stillness settle over you like a gentle covering, because in this stillness, God is not just watching, you are being cradled, protected, and slowly pieced back together by the one who never once considered you too broken to heal. There is more to come, more healing to receive, more promises to uncover, and as heaven continues to speak, know that you are exactly where you are supposed to be, in the presence of a love that does not give up and a hope that will not fade. Archangel Michael says, heaven is still speaking, still flowing into the most tender places of your soul with a love that is not meant to rush you, but to gently embrace you, holding your heart in this very moment like a fragile treasure that has endured much and is still capable of shining brighter than ever before. Type 3030 if you believe Jesus lives in your heart. You are not here by coincidence, and this message did not find its way to you by accident, because God's timing is always sacred, always intentional, and when He reaches for your heart, it is not to remind you of where you failed, but to lift you from the places where you've forgotten how deeply cherished and wanted you still are. There is a soft and holy light surrounding you now, and though you cannot see it with your eyes, your spirit knows it's there, because it is the same light that kept your soul from giving up on the darkest nights, the same light that whispered hope into your sorrow, and the same light that covered you when no one else knew you were falling apart inside. This message is not here to offer simple encouragement that fades with the day. It is here to awaken a deeper truth, the kind that reshapes how you see yourself and how you understand the pain you've carried, not as a sign of weakness or punishment, but as the very soil from which your spiritual renewal is now beginning to bloom. God has never needed you to be perfect, only willing, and even if your willingness is quiet and hesitant, it is enough, because it is in that quiet surrender that grace begins to move, slowly and lovingly, into every crevice of your brokenness, filling it not with answers, but with presence, and not with pressure, but with peace. You may have walked through seasons of silence, where it felt like heaven had gone still, but I tell you now, that silence was not abandonment. It was a pause before the unfolding, a moment of preparation before something new, and in those quiet spaces, God was still holding you, still working in ways that would take time to see but would never fail to reach you. There are things you've prayed for that have not yet arrived, and it's easy to wonder whether they ever will, but I want you to understand that sometimes what looks like a delay is actually God's mercy, protecting your heart from settling for something smaller than what He intended, or guiding you through a deeper process so that your spirit can truly hold what is coming. You are not forgotten, not left behind, not disqualified by your doubts or the moments when you struggle to believe, because faith is not the absence of fear, it is the courage to keep holding on even when the fear is loud, even when the future is unclear, and even when you feel too tired to try again. The truth is, you have already come through so much that was meant to break you, and though it may not always feel like victory, the very fact that you're still here, still reading, still hoping somewhere deep inside, that is proof of the divine strength that lives within you. The strength that God placed in you not to impress others, but to carry you through the days when no one else could. Heaven is not ashamed of your tears, and God is not tired of your questions, because the sacred love you are being surrounded by now is not conditional, not performance-based, and not reserved only for the moments when you have it all together. It is constant, unfailing, and unbothered by the parts of you that are still healing. There is room here for your grief, your confusion, your fatigue, and even your anger, because nothing you feel is too much for God, and everything you've been hiding is already known by the one who loved you before you could name your pain, and who continues to love you without hesitation, without limit, and without end. Type Amen to trust God's plan for your life. So let this part of the message remind you that you are not waiting for love to find you. You are already held within it, already surrounded by it, already chosen by the one whose eyes saw the very first beat of your heart and declared it precious, sacred, and worthy of every good thing that heaven longs to give. You may feel small in this world, but to heaven, your presence carries weight, your voice has power, and your life holds meaning far beyond what you've yet seen, because God does not create anything without purpose, and your very existence is proof that there is something beautiful still unfolding, even if you cannot yet name it. The next part of this message will carry that beauty even deeper, opening your spirit to receive not just comfort, but restoration, not just survival, but sacred transformation that reaches places within you no one else has ever touched. There has never been a single moment when your pain was unseen, and though it may have felt like your tears fell into silence, they actually fell into the hands of a God who collects every sorrow and turns it into something sacred, who draws near not when you feel strong, but when you feel weakest, because that is when your spirit is most open to receive a love that doesn't need to be earned to be poured out completely.